One of the most important elements of land selection is zoning. Hi, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. I've been putting together a large homestead here in the city of Martinsville, and I've invested a significant amount of money repairing the home, repairing the land, and preparing to grow crops. This is more of a kind of like a gentleman's farm or an estate property than a actual farm, but the city looked at what I was doing, and they're under the misconception that I'm doing actual agricultural activities. Basically, having a 40-foot by 40-foot garden is considered agricultural activities to them, and regrading the backyard to make terraces and stuff. Ultimately, they're confused. So here's what happened. The city has come in and given me a notice that I've got to stop certain type of activities. The inspector even recommended I remove from the property agricultural equipment. I have a two-wheel BCS tractor. It's a little bit larger than a Troy-built tiller, but ultimately it's a multi-implement tractor. I've got small trailers I pull behind the riding lawnmower that I use to move materials around the property. It is 2 acres combined, so I have 2 lots next to each other. It's 2 acres. And the city, again, is telling me what I can and cannot do, even though I am zoned residential estate. So I've read the paperwork. I believe residential estate means that I can have a large garden, I can have an orchard. However, the way the city is translating this is that these things can't happen. So I go from having a dream that's finally gaining some traction. I even have hundreds of hours of video of my project moving forward. Now, I hadn't published the video because I didn't want the city to be confused by the language that I'm using, because I was planning to buy the 40 acres behind my house and turn it into a large park. Now, I've met with the city several times about what I was planning, and they always say, well, you could get a zoning variance to allow you to buy the land behind you and turn it into a large park and install ponds and things like that. All my neighbors are excited about what we're doing. It will increase property values. However, one neighbor, turns out he's a property developer, and as a property developer, he's not as keen on what I'm doing. Now, I'm not saying anything bad against this guy. I understand his perspective. However, having the city come by and tell me to stop my work has stopped any forward progress on the project. Now, here's the lesson for the podcast. I'm not really bothered by that. I'm a little frustrated, but because I have planned a system that works in incremental phases. So when we talk about managing land projects, I removed all the trees from the property. I did grading to stabilize the property after the tree removal. And then we had sewer line replacement. I did grading after the sewer lines to address that. I have a detention pond on site to prevent contamination of the creeks and rivers. I've hired a professional engineer to help with the design of the retaining wall and the different supporting mechanisms. I know that I've done things the right way, but again, I still have the hassle. So Prosperity Homestead talks about building up your homestead not only to increase property values, not only to provide food security for your family, not only to provide additional lifestyle value, but also to be prepared for changes you cannot control. I cannot control how the city perceives my property. See, there aren't enough people in my area with large gardens or with natural landscape for what I'm doing to seem normal, and therefore outsiders from the community, these people don't live in the community, by the way, outsiders from the community feel threatened, feel concerned. It doesn't matter that my actual property values have increased significantly since purchasing the property. It doesn't matter that I put tens of thousands of dollars in investment into the property and my neighbors have done the same. None of that matters because, again, people are people, and they just do weird stuff. So again, we have these principles of working in phases, of increasing property values, of increasing food security, all for the stability of your homestead, small farm, or estate, so that if something goes south, you just get up and leave. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I've actually partnered with a local nonprofit farm so that instead of having a 40 by 40 foot garden, I now have a 1/4 acre garden because I'm helping someone else farm. I'm looking at property with family members. I'm looking at property to purchase and build my own house on. All these things are possible because of the approach of the activity, the systems that turn problems into solutions. So I will finish the property, and I'm actually going to make the property here in the city of Martinsville look better than all of the average properties in the area. So I'm going to make it an above average property. It's going to look similar to the typical sterile lawn that just simply has mulching around trees and mowed grass. No more exotic plants, no more, actually they aren't exotic, they're Virginia native plants, but the city thought they were exotic native invasive species and were going to write me up. And I said, please do have the Natural Science Museum come down here and inventory these things for me and write me up for these plants because they're all basically Virginia native plants. So they're going to basically do a free inventory for me. But let me get back on point. Your project, your dream is going to get stomped on, pissed on, stopped, stumbled. People are going to say it doesn't look right. It's not the right thing for a neighborhood because most people don't know what a project looks like when it's in progress. Now, I may have been able to avoid all this by simply getting a building permit because I've done significant house remodel and I've done significant changes to the property. If I had a building permit and a land disturbance permit, there would have been nothing they could have said to stop this. However, it's better to find out now that your project will have obstacles than to find out later. And then it becomes the question of whether you stay and fight or whether you just quit. Now, I'm taking the approach that I'm going to do my best to make the properties that I have look the best they can while investigating a larger acreage elsewhere to do these bigger activities. Because I really can't have, outdoor aquatic ponds. I knew that because you can't do that. I can't really have chickens or ducks. I could have rabbits, but I can't have a large number of rabbits. So ultimately, the city might be doing me a favor by saying, no, you cannot do this. So again, I've talked with homesteaders who live in a city and they're trying to be more food sustainable. They put a garden in their front yard and next thing you know, the city's complaining. Their neighbors love it because they spend time talking on the fence and the neighbors have been looking at expanding their gardens into their front yards. The front yard provided good sun and solar aspect. It provided a good gathering place for the community. Yet somebody drives by and says, that's not right. They've got a messy front yard, not realizing that those are tomatoes and peppers and pumpkins and, edible greens. The confusion of the general society comes from them not knowing where their food comes from, not knowing that chickens lay eggs. And believe it or not, I've met some people who didn't know chickens laid eggs. I've seen vegetarians, by the way, that eat chicken eggs and eat cheese. Yet then swear that we shouldn't enslave animals to work on our behalf. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you're eating eggs. That's like chicken abortions. But I digress. My larger point is, again, your design plan governs what you'd like to accomplish. Zoning is a critical element of your plan that you need to consider upfront in your design. If you should overlook something or zoning changes and people come and wreck with your plan, you have to be able to take that plan and move it someplace else or adjust the plan accordingly. It's not necessarily something they're doing to be vindictive or jealous or something they're doing to get you. It's just something that society is not familiar with how their food grows and where their food comes from. And they're okay going to the grocery store and buying food that's been sitting on a shelf for 30 days. I'm much rather prefer go out in my garden and cut some fresh vegetables. In fact, we have so many vegetables that we can't eat them all. And very often I'll trade with my neighbors. Maybe you'll have a bumper crop of tomatoes and I'll trade some squash for tomatoes. And then I'll have enough tomatoes to can. And then it just goes on and on. A lot of folks don't like the community of agriculture. They see agriculture as dirty, as something that's low paid, when in fact, most of the founding fathers of the United States were in some agrarian agricultural system that allowed them to produce for other people. Many of the Biltmore estate and these destination estates that people go to have a long agrarian background. Now, some of this dirty farm type thing is because of the unfortunate legacy of slavery and the current legacy of taking advantage of immigrant workers. But all these things can be fixed and have nothing to do with someone just simply wanting a garden in their backyard, front yard, side yard, or anywhere else on their personal private property. Ultimately, what I'm saying, folks, is be aware of your zoning, be aware of changes to your zoning, be active in your political system, and so you can influence zoning, because literally the house next door used to have hogs in their backyard in the 1970s. Okay. My point being is that you have to take personal responsibility in this. And if someone else comes along and pisses on your dream and tells you can't do something, that's a point of choice. You can either continue with something else. You can move the whole activity someplace else. Like I'm doing here is actually took all my equipment to this farm. I tilled out probably 1/8 of an acre garden area. Basically did raised beds and paths, videos on the website at www.prosperityhomestead.org. But again, don't get frustrated. Go for agricultural zoning if possible. If you're buying a historic property, you want to make sure get it to zoned back to what it was historically, because you can't have the aesthetics of a historical mansion if you don't have the cattle or the gardens or the things that you've been dreaming about. And ultimately, try to adapt to the problems rather than being stopped by them. And if you can't adapt, always be in a position where you can just get up and go. See, the power of what you know is so important. Knowing how to manage land projects, knowing how to grow food, knowing how to maintain a household, these are portable skills. And if you can't do them in one place, you just simply get up and go someplace else. And very often you can get a deal. You can get that next level. You can grow even further. Thanks for listening. I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. We're here to help small farms, homesteads, and estate get maximum utility value out of their land and support a lifestyle and food security that provides for their generations. Thanks for listening.